Today we're talking about how science does not explain anything as we look at the difference between description and explanation. This might come as a surprise to some people because, as many of you know, I am an ex-Christian and I have suffered from religious trauma syndrome, or RTS. So many people automatically assume that just because I am a ex-Christian and I no longer follow mainstream religion and I'm opposed to mainstream religion, that I am automatically some sort of atheistic materialist individual who subscribes to scientism. And nothing could be further from the truth because, and this might come to a shock, because a lot of people equate science with the epitome of logic and reason and the quest for knowledge. But this is actually absolutely false. This is an illusion that has been placed over the eyes of the world. I am on the side of logic and reason. And as we will see, scientific materialism is not logical nor rational at all. And I am against all systems that are not logical or rational. Now, there might be some systems that are better than others. For example, I think that scientific materialism is a much better step in the right direction than, say, mainstream religion. But ultimately, it is illogical and irrational. And as we're going to see, scientific materialism is a new religion. It is a religion of the senses, and it does not explain anything. We're going to be taking a look at articles. We're going to be taking a look at different quotes that support this and show exactly what this means. And I also want to give a big shout out to our awesome moderator, Rowan, because he reminded me of this excellent quote by Friedrich Nietzsche that goes, "We say it is explanation, but it is only in description that we are in advance of the older stages of knowledge and science. We describe better. We explain just as little as our predecessors." And it's going to be very important to understand the difference between being able to create pragmatic advances in technology, which science has absolutely done, and being able to explain what something is, which science has not done at all. And of course, I think many of you might be thinking, well, what do you mean? Yes, they have. Well, we're going to take a look at this and see that it is the exact opposite. Now, I want to remind you all that if you support on Patreon, that is the best way to support my work, and you'll get access to our weekly secret live streams, and we're having one right after this. You'll get access to my lecture notes for many of my live streams and our hidden Discord, the server, the Citadel. But let's get started. So to better understand this, we're going to take a look at an article from iai.tv, which is an excellent website, by the way. I highly recommend them. I really enjoy their articles. So we're going to look at this scientist known as Arthur Eddington. Now, Eddington is best known for being the first to offer observational confirmation of Einstein's general theory of relativity. Now, we can see this quote by Eddington that says, "Our minds are not apart from the world, and the feelings that we have of gladness and melancholy, and our yet deeper feelings, are not of ourselves alone, but are glimpses of a reality transcending the narrow limits of our particular consciousness. The harmony and beauty of the face of nature is at root one with the gladness that transfigures the face of man." So real quick, Eddington was a scientist. Now, Eddington had a belief that was very similar to panpsychism. Now, panpsychism is the belief that all matter is imbued with what one would say consciousness or mind. Now, that is not our position. Our position is that mind is primary, the primary substance, and then matter arises from mind. It's a subtle difference, but it's actually an extremely big difference and a big distinction. However, panpsychism is a lot better than at least a purely materialist view of reality. But here's where it gets interesting. So how on earth did Eddington reconcile his cold-blooded scientific beliefs with these Jedi-esque mystical convictions? Eddington's starting point was that physics tells us a lot less than we think about the nature of matter. This is very important to our topic today. In the public mind, physics is on its way to giving us a complete account of the nature of space, time, and matter, right? And this is my huge point, in that what science and physics actually does is completely different from what the public thinks that it does. So if you're the standard person who hasn't really delved into the very depths of the philosophy of science, that's probably what you think. And that's fine because, that's the propaganda that's sort of given. That in the public mind, physics is on its way to giving us a complete account of the nature of space-time and matter. We are not there yet, of course. For one thing, our best theories of the very big, that is general relativity, is inconsistent with our very best theory of the very small, that is quantum mechanics. So yes, there's this idea of being able to reconcile quantum gravity and the conception of gravity with how it's reconciled in general relativity. In other words, general relativity and quantum mechanics are incompatible in a certain level, especially when it comes to the idea of gravity. So, but, all right, it is standardly assumed that one day these challenges will be overcome, and physicists will proudly present an eager public with the grand unified theory of everything, a complete story of the fundamental nature of the universe. So that is what most people think. Most people think that physics provides us with a complete account of the nature of space, time, and matter. And even if there are some things that, might not completely make sense yet, that, all right, well, at least one day that will be overcome and they'll be able to present a solution. But that's not right. That's not right at all. And again, the reason why I like to show you guys these articles is because these are things we talk about all the time. And I'd like to show you guys, as I always say, that even mainstream sources are every day moving closer and closer and closer to our position. So this is not how Eddington saw physics. Building on the work of the philosopher Bertrand Russell, Eddington argued that for all its virtues, physics tells us precisely nothing about the nature of physical reality. This is important. This is the key to what we're talking about today. Physics tells us precisely nothing about the nature of physical reality. And this is extremely contrary to how most people think that that's all that physics is about. But that's actually not true at all. If you take a high-level course in physics, now they're not going to talk about this if you just take a, some classical mechanics course, intro, physics 101 or something like that, you're not going to get this. But if you're in high-level physics, they tell you that physics is not about understanding the true nature of reality. Physics is about making a model that provides predictions. This is a huge issue here. There is a difference between understanding the truth of what reality is and a model that provides predictions. I'll delve more into that in just a minute, but I want to read just a little more of this article. So consider Newton's theory of universal gravitation. And you should be able to see this on the screen. Let me make it a little bigger so you can actually see the equation. So if you take a look at this equation here, which is the theory of gravitation, the variables m1 and m2, which is mass 1 and mass 2, stand for the masses of two objects whose gravitational attraction we want to work out. So you have F is the force, G is the universal gravitational constant. The two m's are the two masses of the objects that we're applying the equation to, and r squared, that's the distance between them squared. So, right, F is the force of gravitational attraction between the two masses, m1 and m2. G is the gravitational constant, a number that we have known from observation. And R is the distance between m1 and m2. So if you have two things, you're applying this equation to them, you know the mass of one, the mass of the other, the distance between them, and then the gravitational constant. So notice that this equation does not provide us with the definitions of what mass, force, and distance are. This is really important. Please consider this carefully. Most people just pass right over this, but this is key. The equation does not provide us with the definitions of what mass, force, and distance are. Now, this is not something peculiar to Newton's law. It's not just this law. The same is true of the more complex equations of general relativity and quantum mechanics. The subject matter of physics are the basic properties of the physics world: mass, charge, spin, distance, force. But the equations of physics do not explain what these properties are. They simply name them in order to assert equations between them. Physics does not explain what a thing is. It applies a label to it, a name to it. As Stephen Hawking said, physics doesn't tell us what breathes fire into the equations. If physics does not tell us what the nature of physical properties is, then what else gives us this information? Eddington tells us that physics is a tool for prediction. Even if we don't know what mass and force really are, we're able to recognize them in the world. They show up as readings in our instruments or otherwise impact our senses. And by using the equations of physics, such as Newton's law of gravity, we can predict what's going to happen with great precision. It is this predictive capacity that has enabled us to manipulate the natural world in extraordinary ways, leading us to the technological revolution that has transformed our planet. But it is simply not the job of physics to tell us what the stuff of the universe essentially is. As Stephen Hawking puts it, physics doesn't tell us what breathes fire into the equations. So, again, let me go even further into this because this is so important, and it might sound unimportant, but and almost like the same thing. Well, isn't that really the same thing? No. So let's use an example of a map. A map models the terrain. It describes the terrain. But does it tell you what the terrain is? No, it's just a model of it. If you have a map of a city, does that map of the city tell you what the city is? No. But however, it describes what the city does. You know, it tells you how the roads turn, how the roads curve, different obstructions that may occur. And this map is very, very helpful. By using this map, you can plot out a course. But it does not tell you, the map does not tell you what the thing is that it is modeling. Neither is the map the thing that it is modeling. It is simply a description that helps you in a practical, pragmatic way. Same thing with physics. And again, this is not some fringe idea. If you take a high-level course in physics, your teacher will tell you this. And I just say that because I get so many people who come in here who are atheistic materialist scientists who are like, no, that's not true. You're crazy. And these aren't real. This is an idea that you will learn if you go take a physics course in college, a high-level one. Now, but again, this is critical because most people think that physics deals with understanding what reality is. It does not. It deals with making maps. It deals with description, which is not explanation. Explanation tells you what something is. So let me give an example here to make things a little more concrete. Oh, I still have this very large, don't I? Let me make this smaller so it's not obnoxiously huge. So, let's say that you are going to take a quantum mechanics course. And if you go take a quantum mechanics course, they'll teach you about something called the wave function. And they'll give you an equation associated with the wave function, such as Schrödinger's equation. They'll teach you how to use the wave function to make predictions about the probabilistic trajectory of particles, such as electrons or photons. So they will teach you about a wave function, something called a wave function. They will teach you about its properties. They'll teach you about how to use it to make predictions about the natural world. But guess what? If you say, hey, professor, What is the wave function? This is what they'll tell you. They'll tell you physics is not concerned with what the wave function is. If you want to know what the wave function is, you need to leave this class, go down the hall, and go to the philosophy class. Physics does not answer what a thing is. Physics models reality to be able to come up with a model to make predictions about things like trajectories of particles, how forces interact. And so this is why physics is very successful. This is why science is very successful. And I'm not opposed to science and physics when it comes to creating practical and pragmatic technologies. It's very good at that. But that is the opposite of telling and revealing what truth is, which is not what they do. It is a category error to think that that is what physics is about, because it is not. So a lot of people, when they see me make videos like this, go, oh, well, if you're so against science, you're obviously using a camera right now and talking to us because of science's advancements, so you're obviously a hypocrite. No, I am not against the pragmatic usefulness of science. I am against the idea that is falsely assumed, which is that science reveals truth, which it absolutely does not. So it would be kind of like saying, hey, maps, they don't tell you what terrain is. And then people going, well, how come you use maps? If you use maps, obviously. No, I'm not saying maps aren't useful. I'm not saying I don't like maps. Maps are great. But they don't tell you what the terrain is ontologically in itself as a metaphysical category, concept. You see, science has its place as the manipulation pragmatically for the material world, but it has become so successful at being able to manipulate the physical world, which of course it should be, seems to imply to people that they have absolute truth about reality, which they don't. Nietzsche famously said, success is the greatest liar. Just because you are successful at something does not mean that you know truth. So again, if we can conceptualize it in terms of, let's say, video games, think about a video game world, think about the game Minecraft, and think about, let's say you had Minecraft scientists building tons and tons of, different Minecraft items. They can build all the Minecraft items in the world, but if they think the Minecraft world is real and they have no knowledge of the code, they have no knowledge of what their actual game world is made of, what composes the game world. They can pragmatically create many in-game items and be extremely successful while having no knowledge of the underlying code itself, and even denying the existence of the underlying code because they can't touch it, feel it, see it, observe it, or do experiments upon it. Because the true underlying nature of reality is an unobservable, if we're dealing with the formal side of reality. It's not something that you can do an experiment upon via your senses. It is something only that is accessed via the mind because it is a mental domain, a domain of mind. Let's see. So it's very important to understand that. Please always remember that description is what physics and science does. It describes things. It describes and models a thing. It doesn't give the nature of a thing. It never tells you what a thing is. And if someone out there isn't used to thinking this way, it can take some time. This is everything that I talk about on my channel are things that most people aren't naturally engaged in thinking about all the time. So if you first come across it, it can be a little difficult. It's like exercising a new muscle. It might take some time at first. So really think about these ideas if they're new to you. They might sound like subtle differences, but they are huge and mean everything. So let me give you another example, because again, in this article, let me pull that up again. What was the exact wording here? So the equations of physics do not explain what the properties are. They simply name them in order to assert equations between them. So let me explain again. Let's say, imagine that you are a child and you're looking around the world for the very first time. And you don't really know what anything is. And let's say that you want to know what a table is. Let's say you point to a table and you go, hey, what is that? You ask your mom or your dad or whoever, your uncle, your whatever, it doesn't matter. You ask an adult. You point to the table and say, hey, what is that? And they tell you, oh, it's a table. Does that, I mean, now you've labeled it. You've applied a label to it. But that's not really what you mean. Think about you as a child wanting to know, like, whoa, what is this place? What are things? And you point to the table and go, what is that? And they go, oh, it's a table. Now, have they explained anything to you about what the table is? No, they have not. They've just applied a word to it. Now they might say something like, well, a table is for placing things on. A table is for providing a platform. Now they're giving you a description of what a table does, but it's still not really what you're getting at. You're wanting to know, like, what is this place that I've found myself in? And I want to know what, you know, I'm starting with this particular thing in front of me. What is this thing? And you've just given me a word, and then you've given me descriptions of how you can manipulate it. You're still not really telling me what it is. So let's say you go even further, and it's like, no, I'm not really asking what you do with a table. I mean, I want to know what it is. And they go, oh, well, it's a table's wood. Let's say it's a wooden table. A table is wood. Well, now how's that really explained anything? Because you go, well, what's a table? Or what is that? And they say a table. Well, that didn't really explain anything. You just got a word for it. Well, no, really, what is it? Well, it's wood. Well, now you have a new word. Did that really explain it? Well, no, not really, because now you're going to say, hey, well, what's wood? And then, you know, they'll go, oh, well, wood is a collection of molecules. Well, now, has that really explained it? Now you're just given a new word. Well, what are molecules? Well, molecules are, you know, collections of atoms. Well, okay. Another word, thanks a lot. What are atoms? Now, of course, most adults, their knowledge of the world kind of stops there. They themselves never inquired any further, because you kind of get this Russian doll set of words, and at some point, they just kind of stop asking and are satisfied. Oh, atoms. Okay, I got you. It's all atoms. But let's say they do, though. Let's go even further. Well, what are atoms? Well, atoms are composed of electrons, protons, which are composed of quarks for protons, neutrons, etc. Essentially, fundamental particles. What are atoms composed of? Atoms are composed of various particles known as fundamental particles. Okay. Well, thanks. That's another word. What are fundamental particles? Well, we don't know. I mean, we know as Hyperions know, but physicists, science, they don't know what fundamental particles are. They don't know what they are. So do you see how science explains nothing? You're just giving a list of words and labels. You wanted to know what that table is. Did you ever figure it out, like ontologically, truly, what in this strange world that we've found ourselves in, what that table is? No, because a table is wood. What's wood? It's molecules. What are molecules? They're atoms. What are atoms? Fundamental particles. What are fundamental particles? I don't know. And fundamental particles make up everything in the physical world. But fundamental particles, what they are unknown. So literally, the basis of everything is unknown. So it's not as though physics/science has just a couple things they need to figure out. They literally don't know what anything is, because the fundamental nature of reality are fundamental particles, and these are unknown. So they literally don't know what anything is. But beyond that, it's not even their job to know. They aren't even concerned with that. Science and physics, particularly physics, but science as well. Physics is concerned with creating models that give predictions for pragmatically manipulating the natural world. It's not concerned with what the world is. Again, if you ask that in a physics class, they'll say, go down the hall to philosophy. That's not what physics is concerned with. It's not. Most people don't know that. Most people don't know that. And me, being one who has dedicated their lives to the search for truth and knowledge and understanding reality through logic and reason, this is, well, blasphemous in a certain way, because you leave mainstream religion and expect science to give you knowledge and truth. But they don't. But many people don't realize that. Many people don't go far enough to realize that scientists are just popes, just in another way. So you leave behind logic and you leave behind mainstream religion, go to science, and most people just stay there because they don't study deep enough. They just assume, based on authority, that they do provide logic and reason, but they don't. They don't provide logic and reason, and they don't provide answers or explanations. What they provide are empirical observations related to describing how reality behaves. They don't give you rational knowledge or an explanation of what existence is. Big difference. And if the distinction seems a little fuzzy, some of you it may, some of you it may not, but if it does, please contemplate that, because that is everything. So let me give you another example. If you go to Google right now, and the reason why I'm even saying go to Google to look this up is because, again, people think that the ideas that I talk about are fringe and crazy, but no, these are things that you can just Google. If you go to Google and you look up what is energy, the definition for energy is energy in physics is the capacity for doing work. Okay, so if you Google what is energy, energy in physics is the capacity for doing work. Okay, thanks a lot. That's really helpful. If you type in what is work, you say work is the transfer of energy. So energy is the capacity to do work, and work is the transfer of energy. Have you understood anything about what energy is in these definitions? No, you haven't. These are just labels that are given for practical uses. They don't tell you what a thing is. There is no explanation for what energy actually is. So, again, I want to emphasize that these are things that you can just find Googling. If you go Google, what is the difference between science and philosophy? Here's what you'll get. The main difference between science and philosophy is that science deals with hypothesis testing based on factual data, whereas philosophy deals with logical analysis based on reason. Science is conceived from philosophy and is thus dependent on its theories to begin with. And the reason why I say go Google this is not because I think, oh, Google just has all the answers. I just want to show that these are not what I talk about. What I talk about many of the times are not this like wild fringe ideas that I came up with while taking a shit. These are it's common knowledge when you get deep into philosophy. And again, you can just find it by Googling. Again, not saying that Google has all the answers. I'm just trying to show how easy and understood this is by those who have some knowledge of philosophy. So, but the idea is, why, right, if philosophy is say superior in certain ways, why has science been able to have all the success and philosophy not so much? Well, here's the thing to really understand, and this is very important. For one thing, success is the greatest liar, as Nietzsche says. It is a fallacy to think just because something is successful it means that it's true, knows about truth. Just because science can manipulate nature, well, doesn't mean it knows the truth about what existence is. That's a fallacy to think so. Kind of like, just because someone is a extremely successful actor doesn't mean that what they say about world situations, climate change or whatever, it doesn't mean they know anything about that. And that's a big fallacy that happens all the time, right? People worship these, and the reason why I bring this up is because it happens. People worship these celebrities. They think these celebrities are so amazing and so godlike. And then so a celebrity comes forward and says something, and people are like, oh, wow, it must be true. It's so amazing that you have said this thing that, oh, it's like, no, you're just some celebrity that's maybe a great actor, but it doesn't mean you know anything about philosophy, that you know anything about what's going on in the world. Perhaps they do, but it doesn't automatically mean just because they have success in one thing that they know something about the other. So in an analogous way, Just because science is successful at manipulating the natural world doesn't mean that they know anything about what the world is in itself. And so the reason here, so philosophy deals with what the world is in itself, what reality actually is. But here's the big issue, is that science has embraced mathematics, whereas philosophy more or less hasn't, at least to the degree that science does. Science uses mathematics as a tool to model reality. And so the reason why science is successful is because reality is math. Reality is mathematical. So science is successful because it uses math as a tool, and it works because reality is mathematical. Reality is math. If you take, the great philosopher Mike Hockney points this out. If you take math away from science, science becomes useless. If you were to remove all the equations from science, science would be a useless subject. Science only has success because it has incorporated math. But science, even though it is only successful because of math and only works because it's of math, denies that math is something real. It says math is just a tool, something made up. And so it denies the existence of math, yet if you remove the math, it wouldn't work. Now, that's not proof positive, but it's a huge indication that they have something glaringly wrong. So what philosophy would need to do to be successful and overtake science would be to incorporate math into philosophy, just how science has. Science is really just a very bad philosophy. The only reason why it works is because it incorporates math. If philosophy were to incorporate math in say a rationalist system, it would become and take over science. That's what we do in Hyperianism, particularly with the field of ontological mathematics. It is an idealist, rationalist, monist philosophy that incorporates math into itself. And thus, Hyperianism transcends these definitions. It goes beyond philosophy and it goes beyond science. It's the science of the future. It's the new science. It's the new philosophy. It's the new way of thinking. It destroys paradigms. It destroys boundaries and builds up a new boundary, a new system. It breaks out of the current paradigm that we are in and starts anew on a new level. It's a new phase of reality, a new phase of humanity, a new phase of existence. Another quote that I absolutely love is a quote by Max Planck, founder of quantum mechanics. So Max Planck is the founder of quantum mechanics, and Max Planck believed that reality was not that reality was not material, that it was mind. And Max Planck said, a scientific truth does not triumph by convincing its opponents and making them see the light, but rather because its opponents eventually die and a new generation grows up that is familiar with it. So Max Planck, founder of quantum mechanics, believed that reality was not material but was mind, said that, hey, science is basically brainwashed and dogmatic. They don't listen to truth. The only way science progresses is because scientists die, and then new individuals grow up with a new view of reality because they're not part of the old generation. So let's continue with the article here before we continue to go way too off topic. Well, not really off topic, but all right, but let's continue, but stay with me here. And if any of this, if you're watching the replay or whatnot, and any of this is fuzzy, please watch it again and again and again until it clicks to realize the difference between describing and modeling reality to have success in manipulating reality versus knowing what reality is. And that's the big difference between, science and Hyperianism. Hyperianism, we deal with what existence is. And existence is reason, or existence is mathematics. And these are not just labels. All right, so if you get deep into Hyperianism, you'll see exactly what is meant ontologically in an explanatory way of what these things are. Now, I'm not going to do it right now because that would take hours. It'd be, like asking, oh, hey, what's quantum mechanics? Yes, I can tell you what quantum mechanics is, but give me, do you have a month for me to give you a course on it? But anyway, the idea is, by the way, I'm actually working on a secret project that deals with this, and I think you guys are going to be really excited about it. I'm really excited about it. I'm not sure how long it's going to take yet, but I'm very, very excited about it. Anyway, let's see. Where were we at here? So given that physics tells us nothing about the nature of physical reality, and if that still doesn't, please watch this video again if it hasn't clicked yet. I'm sure for most of you it has, but if you're out there and it hasn't clicked yet, please watch this video again, because it should be blazingly clear now why physics tells us nothing about the nature of physical reality. It tells us how physical reality behaves in a practical way, but it doesn't tell you what it is. Just like the wave function, you can have an equation for the wave function. You can use the wave function to tell you the probabilistic trajectory of electrons. But if you go, hey, what is the wave function? They'll tell you, hey, that's not what physics is about. That's philosophy. Go down the hall. So, given that physics tells us nothing of the nature of physical reality, is there anything we know about it? Are there any clues as to what is going on under the bonnet or under the hood of the engine of the universe? Now, Eddington argued that the only thing we really know about the nature of matter is that some of it has consciousness. We know this because we are directly aware of the consciousness of our own brains. The quote says, "We are acquainted with an external world because its fibers run into our own consciousness. It's only our own fibers that we actually know. From these ends, we more or less successfully reconstruct the rest, as a paleontologist reconstructs an extinct monster from its footprint." So we have no direct access to the nature of matter outside of brains. But the most reasonable speculation, according to Eddington, is that the nature of matter outside of brains is continuous with the nature of matter inside of brains. Given that we have no direct insight into the intrinsic nature of fields and particles, it's rather silly, argued Eddington, to declare that they have a nature entirely removed from mentality, and then to wonder where mentality comes from. On this basis, Eddington concluded that the most simple and parsimonious view consistent with our direct and observational knowledge is some form of panpsychism, according to which the underlying nature of the stuff of the physical world, as Eddington put it, is mind stuff. So, couple things to say here. First of all, I have a big gripe with physicists always using the word consciousness. And again, this goes to show how sort of philosophically illiterate physicists are, because when they say consciousness, they are using the word incorrectly. What they really mean is mind, for the most part, okay? So there is a difference between mind, sentience, and consciousness. So often, they'll use consciousness when they really mean either mind or sentience. Usually it's sentience. So sentience is just awareness. So, imagine an animal that is aware that it's hungry. That animal is sentient. Consciousness is being aware that you are aware. It is a step higher. It involves metacognition. It involves self-reference. So it's not just simply being aware, it's being aware that you are aware. And when you are aware that you are aware, this leads into the development of the concept of the I. Because you can't be aware that you are aware if you don't have the conception of you. So when you become aware that you are aware, this goes hand in hand with the development of I and self-awareness, and this leads to new abilities. This is consciousness. Consciousness in the form of self-awareness. Consciousness in the form of self-awareness allows you to transcend the current concrete moment and live in possibility space. So what that means is animals, for example, are sentient. Animals, they're in the concrete current moment. They are aware. Consciousness, which entails self-awareness, is aware that you are aware, which allows you to transcend the current concrete moment and live in possibility space, which means you can, now that I know that I am aware, I now have a sense of I can imagine possibilities and then make choices to actualize certain possibilities over another. You can think, oh, well, let's see, I am feeling this way and I have conscious knowledge that I'm feeling this way. So perhaps I will do this thing. But you know what? Doing this other thing might be more beneficial. I am hungry right now, but I rationalize that I shouldn't eat right now because I am late for work. And because I am late for work, I know that that takes more priority than satisfying my hunger. So I'm going to go to work to make money because I need money to survive. So do you see the big difference? You are transcending the current concrete moment and you are living in possibility space. And that now there are many possibilities. I could go satisfy my hunger right now. Or, you know, I realize that that's actually not the best idea. I'm late for work, so I need to go to work because if I don't have money, I won't be able to live. I won't have food. A dog just goes, oh, I'm hungry. Where's the food? So consciousness entails self-awareness, which allows one to transcend the current concrete moment and live in that possibility space. Philosophers know this, if they're any good. Psychologists know this, if they're any good. Again, it's usually physicists that, and also mystics. Mystics make this mistake all the time. They go, oh, the universe is fundamentally conscious. They don't mean it's the wrong word. It's not the right one. So let me just get that out of the way because that's a big annoyance of mine. And also, again, shows that physicists really shouldn't be sticking their head in where they don't belong. Physicists are not philosophers. They don't know philosophy well enough to be able to be trying to make these statements. If they want to do that, they need to, you know, study up on philosophy a little more. So, because any philosopher and even any psychologist worth their salt will know that this is glaringly incorrect. So these ideas of Bertrand Russell, and Eddington, the physicist, from the 1920s have recently been rediscovered in academic philosophy and are causing a great deal of excitement. For decades, philosophers and scientists have struggled to understand how physical matter produces consciousness. Because it can't. That's why. The subjective inner world of feelings, sensations, and experiences. So again, they're not trying to figure out how physical matter produces consciousness. They're trying to figure out how physical matter produces sentience, which ultimately can become consciousness. The subjective inner world of feelings, sensations, and experiences are sentience. So anyway, many are now persuaded that, in broad brushstrokes, Russell and Eddington have the right answer. In Eddington's version, physical science describes matter from the outside, providing mathematical models that allows us to predict its behavior. But in its underlying nature, matter is constituted of consciousness. I'm not even going to say anything there, but you know what I would say. It is consciousness that breathes fire into the equations. It's not. It's not actually even sentience. It's mind. Let me see if I have time to talk about this because, oh man. Anyway, the attraction of this view is its capacity to reconcile the reality of consciousness with our scientific understanding of the universe. It will take time for these ideas to move from the closed world of academic philosophy to the broader scientific community and the general public. Intellectual fashions change, and I am convinced that the days when views like panpsychism are dismissed as anti-scientific nonsense are coming to an end. What impact this will ultimately have is unclear. I guess we'll have to wait for the next census. Okay, hold on here. Let me... All right, so let me explain something here. So they're basically saying that really things are pointing to panpsychism. Now, I want to point out that panpsychism is much better than the current idea of scientific materialism, but that is not our position and is ultimately fallacious. So let me explain here the difference real quick. So the vast majority of the scientific community believes that reality is material, and that's it. And that's the materialist view of reality. Some, very, 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 very few, are coming to the idea that that's not true, and they're adopting a panpsychist view of reality. Now, again, hardly any of them are doing this. It's mostly philosophers that are coming to this conclusion. Just taking them way too far fucking long. But panpsychism is a different idea. Panpsychism is the idea that reality isn't just matter, that all matter has a inner aspect to it, and that inner aspect is consciousness or sentience, whatever word you want to use. Okay. Now, this is different than the view of Hyperianism. Panpsychism is sort of this hybrid, saying that matter and sentience / consciousness go hand in hand. Hyperianism says that it is mind that is primary. And from the interactions of mind, this gives rise to matter, which is ultimately mind. In other words, matter can be reducible to mind. In panpsychism, you can't reduce matter to mind. Mind and matter kind of go together. You can't reduce one to the other. In Hyperianism and ontological mathematics, you can reduce matter to mind. Basically what that means that matter is mind, like a dream world. Not exactly the same as a dream world, because this is a collective dream, but you know how a dream world is ultimately mind, even though it seems like matter. Similar to that. Except this is obviously not constantly in flux and changing like a dream world. It's stable. We've explained that before. The reason for its stability has to do with the vast amount of minds that contribute frequency components to this reality, leading to a stable existence. Okay, so also another big difference is that panpsychism, in addition to saying that there's this sort of hybrid, this fusion, and would have to explain how this is possible. But anyway, in addition to this hybrid and fusion, it says that it is more like sentience that goes along with matter. In Hyperianism, it is mind. Now let me explain here. There's a difference, just like we said there's a difference between consciousness and sentience, there's a difference between mind, sentience, and consciousness. So we've explained sentience, which is the ability to just be aware. I'm hungry. Not even I am hungry, just hungry, pain, happy, sad. Consciousness is awareness of that awareness. I am hungry. Oh, I am hungry. Huh, okay. Well, wait a minute. I have options. I can do other things. I don't have to. I can make choices. I can live in future possibilities. I can select one thing. I am a causal agent. Consciousness, higher than sentience. Now, mind is neither sentience nor consciousness. Mind is thought. So for example, if you close your eyes right now and imagine an apple, that apple is a thought complex. That apple is not sentient. That apple is not conscious. It is a product of you as a subjective, sentient, and consciousness being, and conscious being. So, mind is thought. And so, for example, in panpsychism, let's say we have an electron. In panpsychism, that electron would have a sentient aspect. In panpsychism, you could, for example, be that electron, theoretically. You could be that electron. In Hyperianism and ontological mathematics, that's not the case. An electron is a thought complex. It is a product of the collective thoughts of all minds in existence that have combined to form a stable structure. So there is no sentient aspect associated with that electron. There is a mind aspect associated with that electron. Just like if you close your eyes and imagine an apple, that apple is not sentient, but there is a mind aspect involved with that apple. So you can see that there are big differences between the Hyperion idealist stance and, say, the panpsychist stance. But panpsychism is a step, at least in the right direction. It's taking them forever to get there, but they are slowly getting there. Now, another thing, and even this article points this out, and what I want to really make clear is that we are intimately familiar with ourselves as sentient beings. We know that we have an intimate relationship with mind. And in fact, this is a... So here's what I mean. We know that mind is an element to reality. Or how do I put this? We know that mind is, in some sense. In some sense, we know that mind is because we are. We don't have to define what existence is yet or really what mind is. You know, putting all that aside, we know that whatever label or name or definition we want to give to mind, we know that it is because we are. We're having it right now. The particular experiences that we're having, it could be an illusion. The definition of what mind really is, let's say that we haven't said yet, but we know that whatever is happening, there is something happening that we are. The same cannot be said for matter. We don't know that matter exists like we know that mind exists. Because matter, as defined from the materialist perspective, is that matter can exist independently from minds. So let's say you got rid of all the minds in reality, like deleted them. In materialism, matter would still exist. There'd still be rocks and trees, oceans, tables, chairs, cups. That would still be. Because in materialism, matter can exist apart from mind. But again, the interesting thing here to point out is that matter has never been observed. And what I mean by that is that the definition of matter in the materialist conception is that matter can exist independently from mind. But we've never observed matter existing independently from mind. Because that's impossible. Because we are mind. So anytime we observe matter, mind is part of the equation. Because we are mental beings. So what I mean to say, if you might think, what do you mean we've never observed matter? Look, there's a cup right there. It's matter. You, as a mind, are involved in that process. So you cannot be sure that if you were to remove minds, that matter would still exist. Because there would not be a mind to confirm this. So matter, as a thing that exists apart from minds, has never been observed. Because mind always plays a part in the relationship. Now, the same cannot be said for mind. Mind, we know that mind is. Again, not without having to say, a definition to mind, or not to say that what we're experiencing is an illusion, but we know that there is this. The same cannot be said for matter. Now, of course, this is a very rudimentary argument, but it's a powerful one. And it shows that there is something very wrong with the materialist conception of reality. And of course, Hyperianism goes way more into detail and complexity than this sort of argument that I'm giving here. But it's a simple one that can be said very, very quickly that should show a grave error that is being produced. Because matter has never been observed in itself. Matter has only been observed when mind is part of the equation. Thus, you cannot confirm observationally that matter can exist independently of mind. That is an assumption. That is a dogma. Now, I'm not saying that simply by the fact of that we have experience that we can for sure say that mind can exist independently from matter just based on this sort of empirical state that we're in. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it is dogma and fallacy to say that matter can exist apart from mind, because that cannot and can never be confirmed observationally, because it's literally impossible, because mind is the thing that does the confirming. Now, we can in Hyperianism show that matter can exist apart from mind. Not by that argument there, but by much more sophisticated arguments show absolutely 100% with deductive certainty that mind can exist apart from matter. But I mean, that's a whole nother video into itself. I'm sure I've done videos about that in the past. And I am also working on a secret project that I'm really excited about here to explain to you guys. But hopefully that this has made sense, because as I said, this argument and idea can really go over the heads of most people. Most people think that science and physics deals in understanding the truth of reality, but it does not. It only describes and models for pragmatic, practical, and predictive purposes. It does not tell you, it does not explain what anything is. It only describes. It's only a map. It doesn't tell you, the map doesn't tell you what the thing is that it's mapping out. It just gives you a tool that allows you to navigate better. And I'm not knocking for science for that. Science is great at that. But it's a category error to say that science/physics deals in understanding the truth of reality. It absolutely and explicitly does not. It deals with creating models that can make predictions. It is Hyperianism that deals in the truth of reality and goes beyond, well beyond science, and well beyond philosophy, because philosophy has had the error of not incorporating mathematics within itself. Science did, and that's why it's had some success. But Hyperianism is a philosophy that transcends philosophy by incorporating mathematics within itself, and also is dedicated to the raising of consciousness using metacognition and concept networking to be not only just understand the truth of existence, but to shape and change reality. To alter reality through our collective will. Not any sort of like new age woo-woo way where we're all just gonna like sit and meditate. No, by understanding how reality operates, by understanding what we are, and making real world active change to actualize our collective vision based on our knowledge and intuitive understanding of what we are with the formal knowledge, but not only the formal knowledge, but also as well knowing what it is like to be. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. Understanding the formal nature of what the universe is critical. But also, it's about knowing what it is like to be the universe. There is a to be side that comes along as well that must be cultivated. So you need both. You need that formal structure, rational understanding through concept networking of what reality is, what existence is, and then the what it is to be like existence, to truly build a better world, actually. And I mean the word actually in a very literal sense, to actualize it. So we are the science of the future. We are the philosophy of the future. We are the consciousness of the future. We are the self-reflective awakening of reality as what we are together. This is our kingdom, and we will shape it in our image. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports on Patreon, especially Cassidy, Alana, Renaissance Fairy, Jordy, Michael, all of you. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. If you enjoy my work, consider supporting on Patreon. You're going to get access to our weekly secret live streams. One's happening in just a few minutes. Access to our hidden Discord server, The Citadel, my hidden lecture notes, a lot more. And it's the best way to support with all the censorship and deplatforming on Facebook and YouTube. Patreon is the best way. Though you do get access to all that stuff on tier 2 or above on YouTube as well. Any tier on Patreon and tier 2 and higher on YouTube means the world to me. It's how I'm able to do everything I do. Thank you very much.